Hey guys, the NFL season opener kicked off last night with the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Detroit Lions. Like you, I've got a lot of reactions to this game, a lot of key takeaways that I'm looking forward to discussing with how the Chiefs looked, how the Lions looked, and what I think this means for both teams moving forward. Let's discuss. So, if you watched our other video, you know that this is what the opening line for the game was. The Chiefs were 6.5 point favorites, almost a touchdown favorite here at home, and then the total was a whopping 54.5, which is a lot for any NFL game, but not that much of uncharted territory for either of these teams that are known to light up the scoreboard. What was really interesting was about a couple hours before the game that we found out that Travis Kelce would not be playing due to a knee injury that he sustained during practice earlier that week. And Travis Kelce, as we all know from watching the Chiefs the past few years, is the focal point of this offense outside of Patrick Mahomes. Certainly Mahomes' favorite target and possibly one of the best receiving threats in football, wide receiver or tight end. So his absence was certainly felt by the Chiefs this game. Obviously, Vegas thought this was a very big impact as well, as the line swung 2.5 points. Instead of the Chiefs being favored by 6.5 points, they were only favored by 4. Since the Chiefs were at home this game, that implies a 3 point favorite as the home field advantage. So they're really saying that without Travis Kelce, the Chiefs are only 1 point better than the Lions as before the game started here. That's crazy to me. I have not seen one player's impact swing the line so much. 2.5 points was an incredible jump and certainly gave the Chiefs a much lower chance of winning this game. You can see too that Travis Kelce accounts for 2.5 points a game in terms of the total for this, as the line went from 54.5 to 52. So that's all that happened before the game. Obviously, Kelce's impact we all knew would his absence would make a big impact before the game. But let's talk about now what happened during the game. And before we jump into that, don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it, comment what you think about the game, and subscribe to the channel most importantly so you can keep getting all of our NFL content that we will be pumping out throughout the year. It seems to have helped a lot of people in the past, and hopefully we can continue to help out people in the future going forward. I think taking a look at the box score for the game starting at the end can really help explain a lot of what happened during the game, as well as predict what's going to happen for the future for each of these players and teams. Starting with the quarterback look, we can see Jared Goff had a pretty solid game, going 22 for 35, 253 passing yards, and one touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Quarterback rating of 94.1, which is solid. Certainly about 100 is we start to look really good. QBR of 64. Nothing to be desired, but not too terrible either. Patrick Mahomes, a little worse in the stat sheet than Jared Goff, 21 for 39, only 226 yards, which is very surprising compared to what Mahomes has done in prior seasons for the season opener and throughout the month of September, which he's really owned in his career. One pick for Patrick Mahomes, which you could argue with a very strong argument was not his fault. No picks for Goff. You get no sacks for Mahomes, as he was fairly nimble out there and elusive as he always is, and a solid QBR, better than Jared Goff, but a lower quarterback rating than Goff, which is something notable. Just anecdotally watching the game, you see that Mahomes seemed to have a little bit less of his magic than he normally did. Part of that might be because he didn't have the likes of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce on the field. But even so, he still managed to make some really good passes out there and put the ball in tight windows. I think just his receiving core wasn't up to caliber of what he's normally used to. That being said, there were a lot of times you watched this game and you would see Mahomes scramble around, extend the play and find the open guy, only to leave him a yard or two overthrown, so which was very unlike Mahomes. So I think people are overreacting about how Mahomes looked, maybe a little bit less pop off the football, and a little bit less arm power, but I'm not too worried about him. This guy is going to be a Hall of Famer, and I'm sure he'll figure it out for the weeks to come. For Jared Goff, I think he looked pretty normal. Made a couple good deep ball throws, but overall, it was same old Jared Goff, same old Lions offense, where they're going to use Amon-Ra St. Brown and their tight end, who's a rookie this year out of Iowa, in shorter running routes and try to get the ball off quick and not let him hold the ball for too long. Only got sacked once, Jared Goff. Again, Mahomes not sacked at all. Looking at the rushing stat sheet, the real surprising thing is that David Montgomery got a bulk of the carries for the Lions, as opposed to Jahmyr Gibbs, which I think a lot of people had thought leading up to the game would happen. Jahmyr Gibbs, as a reminder, was the Lions' first-round pick this year, one of the 2 first-round picks they had this year. Jahmyr Gibbs, standout running back from Alabama, which has produced a lot of great running back talent over the last decade or so. But David Montgomery, who just came over from the Chicago Bears, the division rival of the Lions, got the lion's share of the carries, 21 of them for 74 yards, averaging 3.5 yards per carry. But if you watch this game, you were much more impressed with Jahmyr Gibbs' performance with the workload that he received. You see here that he's averaging 6 yards a carry. He was extremely elusive, with his longest run being 18, frequently breaking tackles when he got the ball, making defenders miss, and looking extremely shifty out there. So if you're a Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy owner, you're certainly encouraged with the outlook for him. You just hope him to get more carries and more action within the game. Moving over to the Chiefs rushing side, it's never the best thing when your quarterback's the leading rusher of the team. And what's even more concerning is that Mahomes had just about as many carries as the other 2 main running backs for this team. Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not too overwhelming for this game. You didn't expect the Chiefs to run the ball a ton, because that's really not their bread and butter in this offense. Clearly, the offense runs through Patrick Mahomes. But you would have liked to see Pacheco, who I think a lot of people have high hopes for this year, myself included, get more than just 2.9 yards a carry against the Lions defense that really isn't all that great. You remember last year, they had one of the worst defenses in the league, frequently letting up 20, 30 points a game. So the fact that even this Kansas City rushing attack, with the 2-headed monster of Pacheco and Helaire, and then with Jerick McKinnon, who's more of a receiving back, they really couldn't do that much on the ground against the Lions defense that really isn't all that solid. So this rushing attack for Kansas City is something that I'm concerned about going forward, although I do still believe in Isaiah Pacheco, but this run blocking scheme for the Chiefs has got to improve. So overall, you're definitely much more encouraged with the Detroit rushing game, and with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think will start to get more and more of a running back by committee throughout the season, as this team looks to get better and better with Jahmyr Gibbs adapting and acclimating to the league. Taking a look at the receiving for each team, which is really the big story of this game. Jared Goff, who had some really high scoring and high throwing games last year, only 253 yards, but he was efficient in the way that he did it, finding his go-to receivers from last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 receptions, and Josh Reynolds, 4 receptions here. What's also interesting, and a big takeaway from this game for me, is Sam Laporta, the rookie tight end out of Iowa, is going to keep seeing a bulk of the shares in this offense. He's replacing T.J. Hockenson, the other tight end the Lions drafted out of Iowa. So he's filled in that role seamlessly, it seemed like, this game, and I bet Laporta will see a heftier share of Jared Goff's passes as the season goes forward. But that's not that surprising to me, given that the type of offense that the Lions have. Again, they're looking for dink and dunk plays, get the ball out of Jared Goff's hands quick, get your first read and get it to him within 3 seconds of the ball. And that's what a good tight end is for, but it's also what a great slot receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown is for. One of the best in the game, especially in short yardage routes. He's so elusive and so shifty, it's really hard to keep this guy in front of you. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, first touchdown in the NFL season, and I bet you'll see many more to come throughout the rest of the season. Looking at the Chiefs receiving here, you see that the highest amount of yards for any singular player was Marquez Valdes-Scantling. His longest was 34 yards. That's no surprise, as he's long been the deep threat in this Kansas City offense. But you really want these other guys to step up. Like Kadarius Toney, 1 catch for 1 yard. They just got him from the Giants. People expected him to be a bigger part of this offense. Sky Moore, a former first-round pick from the Chiefs, no catches this game and 3 targets. These guys are having, the Chiefs and Mahomes are having to rely on guys like Justin Watson, backup tight end Noah Gray, and running back Isaiah Pacheco for a lot of these catches and yards. That is not the way this Chiefs offense was meant to run. That is not the way this Chiefs offense wants to run. I think a lot of people are ready to hit the panic button without Travis Kelce for this Chiefs receiving core and this Chiefs team overall. I'm not willing to go that far yet, but it is concerning the amount of drops that we seen last game. If you watched it, you were probably either infuriated or laughing with all of the Chiefs drops from guys like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney specifically that really impacted this game. So much so that Patrick Mahomes threw a great pass to Kadarius Toney, went right through his hands, into a Lions defender's hands, and into the end zone for a pick six, which really was the deciding factor of the game ultimately. But this receiving core for the Chiefs is really got to step up. I think you're going to see guys like Justin Watson and Rashee Rice really take more and more of a share of the receiving load this season, with guys like Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore clearly not playing up to par. Also, quick plug for the Twitter account. You should follow us because we don't always just say our picks in our videos. We were on Isaiah Pacheco's over 90 or 9.5 receiving yards, put 1.5 units on it, and he blew that one out of the water easily. So follow at Profit of Picks to get some of our closer to game time plays moving forward. Ultimately, the Lions won a very close game, 21-20. You watch it in the second half, you see the Chiefs are only mustered up 6 points there. That's not going to do it. That's really un-Chiefs-like, unlike Andy Reid, unlike Patrick Mahomes, to do so poorly in the second half. But it was largely attributed to the drops and the unreliability of the Chiefs receiving core, and a few penalties here and there that certainly cost the Chiefs. But you got to give credit to Lions going on the road, beating the defending Super Bowl champions. Certainly encouraging if you're a Lions fan, very discouraging if you're a fan of any other team in the NFC North. I think the Lions proved what a lot of people were talking about in the offseason, that these guys are ready to make the leap. They won 8 of their last 10 games last season, barely missed the playoffs. I got a very strong feeling that you'll be seeing the Lions in the playoffs this year.